and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan, and today we are going to show you a Game Week 22 wildcard team, the dream team that you want to go for Game Week 22 if you're on a wildcard. And even if you're not on a wildcard, I think this is exactly the kind of team you want to be moving your own personal FPL team towards this kind of template, really. So I hope you're going to enjoy this one, guys. If you do, please do leave a like, please do subscribe. I should also say that this is not my personal wildcard. I'm not wildcarding quite yet, and if you want some more details on whether this is the right time or when is the right time to use the wildcard chip and some of your other chips, then do make sure you go check out yesterday's chip strategy videos for a little bit more detail on that one. But let's have a look at the wildcard team that I've come up with for Game Week 22. Alright guys, so I've actually spent 100.9 million on this team, so it's going to be slightly above budget for maybe some people, but I think most of you guys at this stage of the season should be able to afford a team roughly similar to this, so hopefully you're going to like it, and maybe you'll be able to make a couple of adjustments to it as we go through it. So, first of all, in goal, I have got Ederson. So Ederson is the only nailed-on Man City defender, I guess, because there's no nailed-on Man City defender. I guess Ederson is the best option, really, because, you know, as a goalkeeper, he's just going to play every single game. And although I don't really like this Spurs fixture, after that we do have a nice double game week, which is really nice. And then games against Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth back to back are also really, really nice opportunities to get those clean sheets. Man City have still got really, really nice underlying numbers defensively, so they're not going to be, well, looking forward, it looks like they're not going to be conceding too many goals. So I think they can start getting those clean sheets. They just have to have the right fixtures for it. And fixtures like Aston Villa in the double, Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth, and even that Arsenal fixture, maybe there'll be a couple of saves. Or if the Arsenal fixture is anything like the FA Cup fixture, Man City did actually keep a clean sheet in that one as well. So definitely think there's some strong opportunities here for Ederson to keep some clean sheets, and the nice double game week next week, and you get that nailed on City defender for the double and for the future as well. I think everything looks really good for Ederson right now. Let's move into defense. We've got Kieran Trippier, of course. How can we make any kind of FPL team without this guy at this point? West Ham up next, which is a really nice fixture, good opportunity for a clean sheet. That Bournemouth game is a nice one as well. We have seen Bournemouth are kind of at the bottom of the table for chances created, expected goals, and stuff like that. So we are expecting some clean sheets in that regard. And Trippier, with his creativity, we know he's an absolute bonus point magnet as well. So even though he does have that blank in Game Week 25, or I think he's not guaranteed to have that blank, but it's very, very likely that he is going to blank in Game Week 25. I think we have to operate right now under the assumption that Newcastle are going to blank in 25. Same with a couple of other teams. We do have to make that assumption right now, and therefore I feel like Trippier, out of all of the players who are likely to blank in 25, he is one of those players I think you just got to go for anyway. And there's another player kind of like that, and that is Luke Shaw. Manchester United players in general, I think, despite the fact that they do have a blank, because Luke Shaw has just been such a good FPL asset recently, he is still very much a player to go for, and he's the kind of player you probably will just bench for that double game week and play some of your other players instead. But yeah, double game week for Luke Shaw, so we know this is a super, super good opportunity for him to score some very nice points. 2 home games against Crystal Palace and Leeds. Crystal Palace in particular, a team that don't create too many chances, so good opportunity for a clean sheet. Leeds United, play them in the double, and then again the following game week in 23. That's going to be another opportunity for a clean sheet. And then Leicester as well. So yeah, Man United doing very well defensively at the moment and playing very well. A team in very good form. I think there should be a lot to be positive about if you're a Manchester United fan right now. And we've got some really good fixtures here that they could really, really take advantage of. So, yeah, looking good for Luke Shaw over the next 3 game weeks. Let's see how he does. Gabriel up next. So, if we're looking for an Arsenal defender or a player kind of, you know, for Arsenal, we kind of want to look at some of the defenders. I think Gabriel is my favourite one to go for. I am a little bit concerned about Ben White now. Like, it seems more and more he's getting substituted off early. We've seen him come off at half-time, maybe when he's had a yellow card. We've seen Tomiyasu, when he has played very, very well. So you do wonder, in a double game week, which is coming up obviously next week in 23, when there's 2 fixtures close together, is that going to be a time where Arsenal rotate a little bit, or, you know, take Ben White off after, you know, 57 minutes or something really frustrating like that? I think that's a real possibility there. So, yeah, it really does look to me like the best kind of defenders to go for are going to be the centre-backs, Gabriel and Saliba. Gabriel is obviously a much better attacking threat from those set pieces. He's more likely to get those set-piece goals, so that's pretty nice. So I think he is the one to go for. Only 5.2 million as well, so he's reasonably cheap. And we've got some good fixtures fixtures outside of the double game week as well. Everton, Aston Villa and Leicester, I think, are all going to be opportunities for clean sheets for Arsenal. And because Arsenal are playing so well, they've got some good fixtures for a sustained period of time now. They've actually got a lot of good fixtures coming up. They don't really play too many of the more difficult teams outside of Man City in the double for quite some time now. So they've got some really good opportunities for some points. So I really would be loading up on those Arsenal players. Triple Arsenal, if you're on a wild card, or even if you're not on a wild card, is pretty much essential right now. So triple Arsenal is definitely what I go for. Gabriel, I think, is an optional player. I think you've really got to decide whether you want to go for Gabriel in the defender slot, or maybe pick no Arsenal defenders or goalkeepers and go triple Arsenal attack. I think that's an option as well. But for this team in particular, I have gone for Gabriel in defence. Moving on into midfield, we have got Bruno Fernandes, and I feel like Bruno Fernandes is just the player that everyone is kind of talking about right now, in some really, really good form, playing for a Man United team that doubles up next. So we're expecting him to get some really, really good points. I don't think he's going to be predicted to be the top scoring player in this game week, but he will come close. We hope that he's on penalties as well. There's no guarantee here, but it looks like Fernandes did give Rashford the last penalty for Rashford to beat a goal scoring record. So for now, it's possibly going to be back on Bruno Fernandes for pens. We've also got other set pieces. We've also got Fernandes' creativity, which is kind of unrivaled. He really is a real creative force, unlike some of the other Manchester United players, unlike some of the other players in the Premier League. If you're looking for assists, Fernandes is your man. And the goals are obviously a possibility as well. He does take some of those shots on, scores from, low XG chances as well, which is pretty nice from him, making those late drives kind of around the edge of the box, which is good. And the double home fixtures really is something that makes you want to lick your lips, really, at this kind of idea of Fernandes in good form, playing for an in-form Man United team, nailed on player, double game week. Everything is going in the right direction for Fernandes. We want him in our FPL teams right now, pretty much. He's going to be one of the top transfer targets for Game Week 22. And if you're on a wild card, makes sense to go for him. Same with Rashford. I know most of you guys are already going to have Rashford, but he's another player, kind of like Trippier, kind of like Shaw, that you'd say is one of the first names on your team sheet alongside Erling Haaland right now. Like, I would say that Trippier, Shaw, Rashford, and Haaland, they're probably the 4 essential players to own right now. There's a lot of other players that you would highly recommend to buy, but it's difficult to make an argument to not have some of these players, and Rashford is certainly one of them. We know he's in some fantastic form right now. The guy cannot stop scoring at all at the moment. It's kind of been non-stop goals since the World Cup for him. He's a man renewed, reborn. It's absolutely insane to see, isn't it? So, again, we are expecting Rashford to probably be one of the, if not the highest scoring player in this double game week, the best FPL asset going into Game Week 22, really. I think everyone's probably going to, or most people are probably going to agree with that one. If you're not too worried about being differential, Rashford is going to be essential. So there we go. There's a little phrase for you there to use. Next up, we've got Ødegaard. So I think if you're on a wild card and you're looking for that Arsenal midfielder to go for, are you going to go for Martinelli? Are you going to go for Saka? Well, the first player you probably think of is Ødegaard right now, because it's a nice cheap price at 6.9 million. He's got some good underlying stats. He is rested from the FA Cup as well. He didn't start the FA Cup game against Man City, so that's a little bit of a rest. Maybe that's a good thing for him. And yeah, good fixtures again for a decent sustained period of time. We've got a lot of good fixtures for Arsenal. And we've got the double game week next. So, yeah, Ødegaard's creativity and his, his shooting and popping up in the right areas and his technicality, he's just in such good form right now. And we have to say he's one of the best players in the whole Premier League right now. Some people probably even say he's the best player in the Premier League. But, hey, that is a discussion for the comment section that I'm not going to get involved in. But still, we all probably agree that he's very, very good. And he's a player we want in our FPL teams. And at 6.9 million, that's a real bargain to be had there indeed. And finally, in midfield, I have got Mahrez, and I feel like Mahrez is one of the more optional players for Game Week 22. I would say that by Game Week 23, you do want to have one of Mahrez or De Bruyne in your FPL team, but you don't necessarily have to have him for Game Week 22, I don't think. It could be a situation where, for example, if you don't have Gabriel in your team, you can maybe use this slot to go for another Arsenal midfielder. I'll probably say Saka would be the guy I would like to go for instead of Mahrez, potentially. So, yeah, it really is a toss-up, Mahrez or Saka in this slot. If you do go for Saka, that probably means that Gabriel is the player to sacrifice, I would say. But there we go. Mahrez, really good form. He seems to be one of the first names on the team sheet for Man City right now. No Man City player is nailed, of course, but he's in good form, and he is obviously very much trusted by Pep Guardiola at the moment. So It looks pretty good, right? Maybe things will change when the Champions League games start rolling around. Mahrez might fall slightly out of favour in the Premier League games and be more focused on the Champions League games. But those Champions League games for Man City aren't going to start up until game week 24, I believe. So we've got a little bit of time. Certainly that double game week is going to be an opportunity for Mahrez. And that's, at the end of the day, one of the big game weeks we're targeting those Man City players for. Speaking of Man City players, let's go up front with Erling Haaland. Of course, he was going to be in this team. He's always in the team. He's never out of the team. He is never in doubt. So yeah, Spurs game. I actually don't think this is a terrible fixture, even though I did say, Mahrez is optional, and that's only because of players like Saka who are doing so well at the moment. But I would say that Haaland is definitely a good option for this Spurs game. The quality that this player has, and Spurs tough-ish game. I don't know if it's as tough as maybe some people make it out to be. We saw Man City only a couple of weeks ago score, a few goals against Spurs, so that can very much happen again. Unlucky that Haaland wasn't involved in those goals last time, but there's nothing to say that he won't be this time. We saw him obviously absolutely kill it in game week 21, which was, back to business for Haaland, I suppose. So yeah, Spurs game, okay. Aston Villa versus Arsenal, you're definitely going to want to have Haaland in your team as a captaincy option for that. And then Forest and Bournemouth, it's going to be goals galore. We're probably going to be captaining Haaland again pretty permanently after game week 22, after we've had a look at some Manchester United players for one game week only. Next up, I've got Harry Kane. So I would say that he's still a player that we should be keeping in our teams, probably. I feel like he is more optional than he has been before. So, for example, if you did want to downgrade Kane to a slightly different forward and maybe move some money into midfield and go for De Bruyne instead of Harry Kane, that way you can have Fernandes, Haaland and De Bruyne instead of Fernandes, Haaland and Kane. I think that's very much an option as well, but I have put Kane in this team because he is still scoring goals. We like to see that. We like to see he's still in good form. In a bad Spurs team, he really is still carrying it. He's on penalties, and we have got these nice fixtures against Leicester and West Ham coming up, and even this Man City game, we've said this before, we've seen this before. Harry Kane does score against Man City. It's a game that Spurs do seem to actually quite like. So even though it's a difficult game on paper, seems to be a fixture that Spurs do quite like. So yeah, maybe Kane can get something out of that game. I wouldn't be totally surprised because he is, a quality player, one of the top scoring players in FPL this season, alongside Haaland and Trippier is Harry Kane. He's the third guy on that list of consistent high scoring FPL assets. So there's not too much to dislike about Harry Kane in FPL really, but I still think that he's not as essential as he perhaps has been in the past. If anyone even has ever been saying he's essential, he's kind of been the forgotten man at many points in this season. And finally up front, we have got Nketiah. So actually Nketiah, I would say I would rather have him in my FPL team right now, probably definitely ahead of Gabriel. Definitely ahead of Martinelli, definitely ahead of Saka, just because of the price difference. I do think makes a slight difference there. Ødegaard, it's a little bit close, but I genuinely feel like Nketiah could be my favourite Arsenal player to own right now. Genuinely, I feel like he could be. His numbers are just phenomenal right now. If you look at his underlying stats, they are insane. The best of any Arsenal player at the moment, by far. And he is also actually returning. He's getting goals and he's competing within his own stats. So it's not like these numbers look unsustainable. It looks very sustainable. He's looking good. He is a focal point. He is, a much more direct kind of player than Gabriel Jesus. And he is looking to get those goals. And he has been doing it as well. So definitely a player who I think is kind of, if you're not on a wild card, kind of very high on your priority list to buy, really. Maybe even ahead of Ødegaard, potentially, genuinely. And he's a little bit more differential as well at 5.9% ownership as I record this video. So pretty differential. So you still get a little bit of an advantage over some of your rivals in FPL as well, I guess. So yeah, Everton, good fixture up next. After that, we've got the double game week, which is really, really nice. We're going to want to triple Arsenal for, by the time we get to that double, we are going to want to have that triple Arsenal, aren't we? And Nketiah should be one of those players. Aston Villa and Leicester are obviously up next, which is really nice as well. But this is the starting 11. It looks really good. Let's bring up the bench, guys. We've got Ward, your standard classic 4 million bench goalkeeper. And on the bench, interestingly, I have gone for a couple of Aston Villa players. So we've got Leon Bailey, 4.5 million. I do believe, genuinely, that Bailey has probably replaced Andreas Pereira as the best 4.5 million midfielder to own right now. So on a wild card where you do have this opportunity to start afresh. There's no such thing as luxury transfers because you can make as many as you want. You may as well go for who I genuinely believe is the slightly better midfielder to go for at 4.5 million right now. So, like that. Mings there as well, 4.3 million defender, so very, very cheap. And we have seen that Aston Villa under new management, they have really genuinely improved a lot. In fact, they've got the best record in the Premier League of any team since the Emery takeover. I do think people have maybe missed that one, but Aston Villa have been very, very sneakily very, very good. So maybe a wild card is an opportunity to grab a couple of those Aston Villa players. Why not, eh? And Bueno as well. Kinder Bueno himself, 3.9 million defender. Very, very cheap. Very, very nice. £1 Bueno. He's just a good player to own for Wolves. Good defence. Well, good-ish defence, I suppose. They're not amazing these days, but look, it's a decent player to own. And what I like the most about these three players who I've put on the bench is not only are they very, very cheap, but I've thought about this specifically, they have good fixtures in game week 25, and I think that's a real key thing here. So Aston Villa, they play against Everton. Wolves play against Fulham there. So what we've got here is three fairly decent, cheap FPL assets who have fixtures in Game Week 25, which means when we come to Game Week 25, and you guys have got the likes of Trippier and Shaw and Rashford, you're probably still going to have those three in your team in Game Week 25 because you're going to want to keep these kind of players for the long term. Fernandes, you're probably sold by that point. But yeah, you'll have these three players who all blank in Game Week 25. So for one game week only, you're going to want to have some players who have at least a little bit of confidence in to come on and score you more than 2 points, basically. That's what we're after, really. And definitely Bailey, Mings and Bueno, they're all predicted to score a fairly decent amount of points. Don't expect anything crazy or anything mega. It's a blank game week. It's going to be in a naturally low-scoring game week, but at least you have something there, an actual opportunity to get a few extra points rather than just having blank players everywhere, you know? So these are good, real nice understudies for game week 25, and genuinely, outside of that, because Aston Villa have been a good team in general, they're obviously players who you can depend on occasionally. You know, if you need to, you know, remove a suspended player, but you don't want to sell them, you could bring in a Bailey, or you know, you don't like the look of one of your defenders' fixtures one week, but Aston Villa's fixture looks really good. You can maybe bring in Mings for an opportunity like that. So yeah, there are players who can be really dependable when you need them. And in Game Week 25, we are going to need our benches. Believe me, guys, if you're not using a chip in Game Week 25, you are going to need to depend on some nice bench options. And these cheap guys are the players that I like as those cheap options to rotate in for Game Week 25. Now, there's one more thing of note in this team that you guys have probably noticed, that there's no Leeds United players. And this is very much intentional. I'm not too keen on Leeds players. Yes, they have a double game week, but one of the double game week fixtures is against a very much in-form Manchester United team, so that's going to be very difficult for them. And I'm also not totally convinced by some of the minutes of some of the major players. So, for example, we look at Rodrigo when we've seen Bamford coming in and playing well a little bit here and there. So is Rodrigo going to rotate with Bamford a little bit? Probably. Nonto looks very good at the moment, but he's taking up a valuable forward slot, which you probably want more of an Nketiah in that kind of slot. And also Nonto, we're going to see Somerville come back very soon as well. So even if they work well for this game week, they're going to be players you're probably going to need to sell fairly soon. That's even assuming they do get decent points. So when you consider that they're players that will force you to make transfers out, and I don't think their ceilings are that high anyway. You know what? You can see like Nketiah in a single game week or Kane in a single game week outscoring Nonto. I think you guys probably agree with that. You probably say the same thing. You know, Ødegaard, Mahrez, probably going to even Saka, probably going to outscore the likes of Rodrigo, even though they're on, you know, single game weeks. Rodrigo's on a double. So I think, yeah, that's the kind of thing I would be considering. Yes, there is players like Meslier and Strike as well, Struijk, but kind of, do you want to go for Leeds defenders? Probably not. They concede a lot of goals. And maybe one more thing that you guys are probably noticing is that I haven't got Mitoma. Mitoma is probably going to be the player you're all going to be screaming in the comments. Where is Mitoma? Where is Mitoma? Well, I'll say it for the benefit of those of you guys who actually watch the videos. Shout out to you guys, by the way. Yeah, I just feel like Mitoma, I like him a lot as a player, and I've spoken about him a lot on this channel. I do really like him, but I feel like moving forward, if you don't already have Mitoma, might be slightly too late, because yes, Mitoma has three fairly decent fixtures over the next 3 game weeks, but in game week 25, Mitoma is now, and all Brighton players are pretty much guaranteed to blank at this point. It's super likely that they're going to blank. We will have that confirmed by Tuesday, but yeah, it's super likely that they're going to blank in game week 25. So what we really want to look at is Mitoma going to outscore some of these other midfielders over the next 3 game weeks before that blank happens? Well, Fernandes, no. You know, Fernandes plays one more fixture than Mitoma and plays the likes of Crystal Palace, Leeds, Leicester, Leeds twice actually. So yeah, really good. Same with Rashford. We're expecting both of Rashford and Fernandes with the extra fixture and the good fixtures in general to outscore Mitoma. Ødegaard, again, with the extra fixture, with the good fixture, with the form, again, you're expecting Ødegaard over the next 3 game weeks to outscore Mitoma. Mahrez, maybe there's a little bit more of an argument here, but certainly, you know, when we've got that double game week in 23, you know, who's going to score more than who? Is there an opportunity to maybe go for Mitoma as a 1-week punt and then remove him for a Mahrez for the double game week? I think there's some potential there to do something like that potentially, but I would say in general, the likes of Fernandes, Rashford, Ødegaard, Mahrez, Saka, you know, maybe a couple other players. You know, you could even potentially throw in, you know, maybe Casemiro into that mix, De Bruyne into that mix, Anthony into that mix. I don't know. Maybe I'm taking it a little bit too far now. But my point is that all of these players, they are players that, you know, you would probably expect to outscore Mitoma over the next couple of game weeks. So therefore, is there really any point in going for a Mitoma who you know is going to blank in 25? Is it possible to just wait until after game week 25 and buy him in then? Possibly. With all of these double game weeks that are coming up, you know, in this short period of time, we want to focus on the double game week players. And then after that, after game week 25, because of Brighton's progression in the FA Cup, it's actually looking really likely that Brighton are going to have loads of really nice double game weeks. So after that blank, you know, particularly if we can try and avoid some of the other blanks that Brighton look like they're going to get as well, that will be the time where Brighton players are a little bit more safe to go for. I'm definitely not saying that Mitoma or March or Estepinian are bad options necessarily to go for right now, but I would personally rather focus my attention on the double game week players between now and the blank game week. And then after that, that's probably when I will turn my attention to them. If you already have Mitoma, obviously you keep him. Obviously you keep him. But if we're talking about setting up a team or using your transfers to get a player, then it's slightly different. But yeah, Mitoma, if you're fancying for a 1-week punt and you're on a wild card, I back it. If you're using your transfers to transfer in Mitoma and then back out again, but you are lacking some Manchester United players, for example, then I would say that Manchester United players, Arsenal players are probably the priority players to go for right now, which is why we are tripled up on both Arsenal and Manchester United and Man City, to be fair, as well, for their Game Week 23 fixtures. And after that, you know, where else can you go? You can only pick 2 more players. One of them's going to be Trippier, and it's kind of up to you who the next player is going to be. I've gone for Harry Kane. So, there we go, guys. That is the team. Let's slap the captain's armband on Rashford. I've already made it fairly obvious that I believe Rashford is going to be the, well, most likely to be the highest scoring player in Game Week 22. And, you know, it seems like all of the models and the AI kind of agrees that Rashford is going to be the highest scoring player in Game Week 22. Fernandes, vice-captain. I think he's kind of a close-ish second, but not quite the same numbers as Rashford. Obviously, if you're on a wild card, you can't use your triple captain, but if you do have your triple captain, like I'm very likely that I'm going to be using my triple captain on Rashford. I'll put that one out there now as a little sneak preview for you, those of you guys who watch all the way to the end, I suppose. But yeah, that's what I would do right now. If I was on a wild card right now, had unlimited transfers, my team would look pretty much like this. I think this is a really, really strong team to take for the next 3-4 game weeks. Then you can start making adjustments after that. But certainly for now, this looks amazing. It covers all of the doubles over the next few game weeks. It accounts for the blank game week in 25, and make sure you have that covered as well. It's not going to be perfect for everyone. Some people are going to prefer to go for some other players, and that's completely fair enough. But this is where I would go personally. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe as well if you're new around here. And like I said earlier on in the video, please do go check out my video on the double and blank game weeks and chip strategies that I made yesterday. Put so much work into that one. It took a couple of days to make and to work it all out. And there's some really good graphics in there that you are going to find so helpful. Trust me on that one, guys. you know, without trying to sound arrogant, there's some videos I make where I'm like, I'm really kind of proud of this kind of video. So I hope you guys are going to like that one too if you haven't seen it already. That was uploaded yesterday, bit of a long one, but hopefully it'll be worth it. But yeah, we're going to call it for today. We have got loads of videos coming up this week as usual, the usual content, and maybe a few bits of extra bonus content as well that hopefully you're going to enjoy ahead of double game week 22. But for now, guys, thank you so much for watching once again, and I will see you later, mates. Bye bye.